This show is sponsored by CLN Wash. Discover physician-developed skincare solutions specifically designed for compromised skin. Starting in the shower, CLN's skincare line of products helps promote healthy, refreshed, and comfortable skin. Visit clnwash.com to learn more and find the perfect products for your skincare needs. Guys, you know that I don't promote anything on this show that I don't personally advocate for, and I'm thrilled to share this hidden gem with you. As a lifelong athlete, working out and sweating have always been a part of my regular routine. It wasn't until college, when I was a cheerleader, that I developed back knee. I couldn't wear shirts with low backs and felt super self-conscious in my own skin. I was recommended CLN Wash by my dermatologist back then, and it cleared my breakouts. Today, I still use this product for a nice clean wash in the shower. Use code Sabrina for buy one, get one on your first purchase. Welcome to I'm Well Aware. I'm your host, Sabrina Schielein. I'm Well Aware is here to sift through the noise of wellness and provide you with tangible tips to change your life for the better. Let's dive in. Kody Onyiuke, I'm so happy to have you join I'm Well Aware. I feel like this is a while in the making, so I'm super pumped that you're making some time for me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored. We've been friends for, such, a long time, coming into like COVID and after COVID. And it just an honor, because I know you've had so many incredible guests, in the industry and out of the industry. So to be part of that group and lineup, it feels really cool. And I'm so proud of you too.
Thank you. Every time I see you, I feel like you're just a ray of energy and sunshine and happiness. And with my show, there's so many different things that we could talk about, but I feel like you are such a great person to bring on and hear your perspective on life and on mental health and on other things that we're gonna get into today.
Of course.
But I want to give people an understanding about who you are, Kody. You are a fashion model, a TV host, an actor, reporter, and you have your master's in psychology.
Yes.
Brains and beauty, baby.
You know what? That is a great combo. That is an awesome combo in this world. And, I've had a lot of great experiences, in academics, and a lot of great experiences outside of it, delving into the entertainment industry. So those two worlds, I feel so lucky to have been a part of and still be a part of. And, I always tell people and this is something that I know we'll talk about more, in this interview, that, you can be more than one thing. And it's really important to reach your hand and grab, your destiny in whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Kody, could you give our listeners a backstory into a bit more about your journey and then ending up in New York?
Yeah, for sure. So where do I start? Well, I think, as a kid, I was very, intuitive towards people's emotions and the emotions around me. I was a very, kind of strong-willed kid as well. And, I very much always kind of knew what I wanted and where I wanted to be, even though that there were obstacles, in front of me in terms of getting there. And, I grew up in a Nigerian household. My parents are Nigerian from West Africa. And so my dad came here in the 80s and then my mom in the 90s, and, then had, me and my siblings. And, it was really an incredible part of my childhood, really making sure that I was proud of being a Nigerian-American and really making sure that was, known. And, even being Nigerian, it just really taught me to just appreciate your culture. And, everyone in this world, should really just appreciate the positive things that come out of their own culture and share that with the world. Because I've always remembered this quote, throughout my whole life, that, I'm my ancestors', greatest greatest pride, and we all are. None of our ancestors, if we, took out, an ancestor from like 1,000 years ago or like 2,000 years ago, would they ever imagine that a descendant of theirs is living the kind of life that, we're living in the 21st century, that we're reaching for our goals, that we are becoming things that they could never have dreamed of, whether it be technology driven or, industry driven or economy driven or religion driven, all these things that we are able to do. And the world isn't perfect. There are parts of the world where things aren't the way that they should be and the way that they need to be, and no country is perfect. America's not perfect. Asia's not perfect. Europe's not perfect. Africa is not perfect. All of these continents, in the world, nobody's perfect and no country's perfect. But, to be able to do the things that we're able to do in the 21st century now, it's we have to remember that is such a blessing in and of itself too. And so, growing up, I played a lot of sports. I'm a born athlete, and I love just fitness and exercise and all of those things. That's like so important. And I always tell people, like, you have to be active. And so, my parents really made sure that we were all active growing up. And that was really important to me. And, being, a theater, kid as well as like being an athlete was really awesome as well, because I got to experience both of those worlds, together, which was really cool. And, as I grew up, my parents were really incredibly driven towards us going to like Catholic school. And so, I went to Catholic school all my life, from first grade until high school. And then high school was like a Benedictine school. It was an all-boys school called Barton in Morristown, and it's like one of the top like 20 schools in like New Jersey and like via the East Coast. So felt really blessed to have attended there, and then went to like a Jesuit college called Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. I studied psychology and theater there, which was really awesome. I wanted to play lacrosse there, but I kind of had to choose between kind of theater and sports, and that was really tough to kind of have to kind of lean on one, more so than the other. But, I felt really blessed by the time that I had there in college. And then I got my master's in psychology here in New York, out of all places, at Pace University, which was really incredible. And to just, use my knowledge and like the academics that I learned over the years to apply myself in my master's degree, it was just like the most incredible experience. And like, I love people and behaviors and actions. And, out of like all my friend groups, like I'm the one that all my friends come to in terms of advice. And, Kody, this person is acting towards me in this way. How would you go about it? Like, what do you think? All these things, and even my family members have. And so it's this like sixth sense that I've always had as a kid, just really getting people and understanding them on like a subconscious level. And that's the reasons why I wanted to pursue psychology in such, a strong way. And funny enough, while I was doing my master's degree at Pace University, I decided to intern at Tribeca Film Festival. And so Jane Rosenthal and Robert De Niro, they co-founded it in the early 2000s. And so I was able to intern there and then work under Jane's executive assistants the next year. And that was such a blessing, because it was the first kind of step through into the industry that I had. And, around that time, I was also entering and, starting to do my fashion stuff and my modeling. And so those two worlds coming together in that way, I really appreciated in terms of like destiny driven stuff. And so, yeah, after Tribeca Film Festival, I wanted to do more like community driven work. And so BronxNet TV came into the picture, and they're a media television nonprofit TV studio and company. And I felt so lucky to have been like a part of that, that world for, I want to say the last 5 years, kind of hosting and reporting and all these things. And that has been such a blessing too, because, I've been able to interview, the likes of Ellen Burstyn, Oscar award winner, Neo, actress Nina Dobrev, just an incredible line of people that, I could go on to name, New York senators, and councilmen and councilwomen, just an incredible line of people I've been able to meet and interview, and it's really been a blessing. I could really go on and on, because I know my story is pretty long, but I'm glad we started with that, because for your listeners, they can get to kind of see kind of the twists and turns that I made in my life and my career, and to really realize there's no wrong or right answer when you're trying to figure out how you want to use your gifts to change the world and like to honor your soul. Us being on earth, how am I going to honor my soul? And that's something that like I really want your listeners to really appreciate. How am I going to honor my soul? And if you say that every day in your mind, you're going to go out every day being the best that you can be, because you have to honor yourself, honor the time that you have here on earth to change the world, to change one person's life every day, all of these things. And so I really appreciate where I am in my life, and I have so much more to do and so much more that I want to accomplish, but you have to be proud of yourself where you are and where you've been.
Kody, I can't thank you enough for sharing your backstory. There's so many things here that I want to dive in from what you said, and I think too it's so great to listen to other people's stories. And I feel like in a way we can all relate in same but like different ways. In the same sense, I'm also a first generation American. My family immigrated from Italy and moved to Brooklyn, and in that same way, just like what you said, my ancestors would never understand like the fact that I'm here podcasting. They went through the hardest times. They traveled here by boat. They've seen plagues and illness, and have truly, my grandpa worked on the railroad tracks here and would send money back to his family in Italy to try to help them survive. And they went through so much that oftentimes like I feel guilty. I have these like pinch moments where I'm like, I feel so bad that, my family didn't get to follow their dreams. They did by coming to America, but at the same time, it's like, I can't think that way. I have to think they did that so that I could have the life that I'm living now, so that I could fulfill my destiny, my heart, my soul, the things that, I really want to accomplish. I'm very fortunate that my family made all those sacrifices for me today. And in the same way, I did theater growing up, I did sports growing up. I think doing all of these things, performances, shows, it really does build your confidence from a young age, being able to work towards something and put on a show for people, whether it was a sports game like lacrosse or whether it was a musical. I was always like a tree in the background, but like I think it's so special being able to do those things too growing up. And again, super fortunate, because if I didn't do all of those things, I probably wouldn't be here sitting here today with you. And you interview people, and now you're being interviewed.
Yeah. It's a very cool feeling. That's a really cool feeling, and you really feel. That's why I'm so happy that you asked me to be a part of this. And we're really incredible friends, and so the fact that we wanted to do this for so long and it's happening today feels so good.
Yeah. No, I agree. Something I want to talk about is in that generational impact space. So millennials and Gen Z, like, we are able to speak about these things today, whereas our family in the past hasn't been able to speak to. Let's say we're talking about mental health, for example. You have a master's in psych. would love to hear your perspective on how you see the way that generational timeframes have impacted our ability to be able to bring things to the surface.
Our generations, our parents, our grandparents, and then into us, were so different, and the way that we were taught is so different. And I had to have these conversations with my parents growing up as well. And then as a young adult, I had to come and realize that, we all have to forgive our parents for, kind of how they were raised, and kind of, how the world treated them, and hence how that made them, and then how that affected us growing up, and I had to understand that. And, talking about baby boomers and Generation X and millennials and Gen Zs, and now, Generation Alpha, which is, so insane to even think about. That they're growing up in this world now, and they're the generation that they are fully born in this tech world. They will really know nothing else before. We had the pleasure of knowing both worlds, and Gen Zs can still see that world and kind of appreciate that world, even though they were born during that time, and can still kind of understand it, even though they're Gen Zs. But like Generation Alpha, they won't know a world kind of before that.
They won't know a Walkman.
No.
They won't know TVs where you have to turn it on from the box itself.
Landlines, all of these things, and that mental space of us being like millennials and Gen Z, or specifically those two, it's so important for us to understand that we have to live the way that we want to live, that we can't be dictated by those generations prior, because we're still working for those generations today. The economy is controlled and driven by them. There's so many studies where we're so much lower in terms of a percentage of where we're supposed to be, whether it be home ownership, or whether it be marriage. And there's so many studies where you see this decline. If you look at charts and studies, you see this decline of the number of babies being born every year, and this is 2024. It's so insane and crazy, because I feel like, even tying into the environment as well, we're living in a time where climate change is really evolving, but in a really negative way, because that will affect our descendants. What will happen in 100 years? What will happen in 200 years? The outlining of New York in about 100 years is going to be underwater, the outlining of New York City. Those lands that are close to water, they're going to be underwater, because our sea levels, keep rising. It's all of these things that we have to be weary of, and that also ties into the stresses that we as millennials and Gen Zers are experiencing right now, whether it's be our current political situations, and the fact that we can be outspoken about the fact that we can protest in a peaceful way, and so many of us have. And I'm so proud of so many, college students and grad students that have been doing that for the past year and a half. During COVID, back in, 2020, when there was so much police brutality, going on, and seeing those protests from young people really just made me feel, it made me feel so seen. And I know it made others feel so seen as well, not only in the Black community, but abroad and across the world. And, again, even with that on the political, landscape, and making sure that our voices as adults and as young people and as teenagers are heard loud and proud, it's so important. But I know that in and of that, kind of the mental landscape of kind of where we are and kind of the obstacles that we have to experience as those various generations, it's so tough, but you have to find, a positive outlet, and you have to find a positive way to make sure that you're changing the world every day. And I say that in terms of you as an individual. Don't follow the crowd. Don't follow the trend. Don't be a sheep, honestly, because our world, we were made to be robots, to not speak up, to not do all these things that make us human, and we don't want to turn into robots. And I think that, with COVID and how difficult that was for us as humankind, it made people realize, I don't want to live my life for 60, 70, 80 something years and regret it because I didn't spend enough time with my family, or I didn't go to my sister's play, or I didn't spend time with my mom on Mother's Day, or I didn't hang out with my, dad, even though he didn't, outwardly say it. I knew, all of these things. Like, I know how the emotions around me are. I can see it, but I didn't do anything about it. It's like all of these examples and things. What can you do to change that? And I think COVID really opened the eyes to so many people. And, it's something where we kind of looked at it and look at the economy now. And I think that, America is so far backwards because we're now entering this kind of hybrid type of world, and not necessarily working like 8 straight hours a day. Employees are really able to finish the work that they need to do at their deadlines, but still be able to work from anywhere, whether it be home, a coffee shop, the office. You're going to get your work done. And I think that we have been pushing that for so long, but companies weren't getting it. And it had to take something like being at home to actually appreciate that we can do so many things that we knew that we could do, but we needed people to voice it, and we needed to be in this space to appreciate that we can do that,
Yeah. And I love there's so many great things here that you said that I want to touch upon. In terms of family dynamic, I think you make great points in that we are doing things that are different than what our parents did, our families did, our generations did. And it's really finding that balance between love and self-acceptance.
Right.
I think we want the acceptance of our family and our loved ones and our friends. We want people to like us. But at the same time, if you are doing it for other people, you're never really going to reach your full potential if you are, waiting on someone to give you the green light, because people will always be skeptical of other generations about what you're doing. Even for me with podcasting, my family, they're starting to get what I do now. But for a while they were like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what are you going to be doing? Why are you doing that? And I know it came from a place of love, and that they just didn't have the same opportunities that I have.
Right.
But if I listen to that, I can love them and respect them.
Right.
But it's also following your own dream and knowing what's right for you, despite how hard that might be.
100%.
And totally, what we talked about with mental health in that space too, COVID, social media, all these things definitely opened up a lot of people's perspectives and allowed for more freedom of speech all over the internet, for the good and the bad, because there's definitely always mixes of both.
Yeah.
But a Gallup survey from 2023 talked about how there's more depression today than ever before. And some of the reasons being isolation, social media replacing social activities for people, kind of filling up those different cups, the stresses of modern day. But also there's a degree of it that maybe we're just talking about it more than ever before. Maybe we are, standing up for those causes and those rights and those political stances and whatever it might be, and also our mental health, that it's just brought to the surface more and easier for people to talk about.
100%.
So I couldn't agree with you more in terms of just finding that balance between what you want to do and then what the other people around you are saying, and like really just living that prophecy, that destiny that you're meant to be, and just helping people day by day.
100%.
So Kody, transitioning into our soul, our flesh, and the universe, I would love to hear your perspective on these three things and how they all come into play.
Destiny is such an important word, and when you think of destiny, so many things come to mind. It's the destiny that you are meant to live in this lifetime, like within this era, within this world right now. It's that our souls can be reincarnated so that, our souls have lived various lifetimes because we needed to come back to learn and to explore more different lives and all of these things. It's, the realization that, our souls, a lot of the times we have a choice to be reincarnated or not, that, up in this afterlife, whether you want to call it heaven or something else, that, we have tasks, we have jobs up there, that we are able to do, and I say that because I say it in terms of guiding our loved ones that are still on earth. And so, people that have passed away in our lives that we have loved, they are up there and they are so happy and so filled with joy, that it's something that we could never imagine. And they are waiting for us up there. And in the meantime, they're there as well and by our side every day to guide us more towards our destiny each and every day.
I feel it.
And you feel it every day. And that's why I always say that death is a new life. Death is a new beginning, and it's something that is difficult for our human minds to sometimes understand. But what we're doing right now in our world and our flesh and our bodies, this is really not who we are. This is really not even how we look like. Our souls, we can't even begin to imagine that. And it's our souls that are in us. That is who we are. This is really just a vessel that we're using to navigate the earthly world. And when we enter that afterlife, that heaven, our souls are, intertwined, and our souls are brought back together with, the people that affected our lives, with our loved ones, all of these things. And it's that light that we have to keep on using, in our world to be a part of it, to change it, to do so many things with that. And, when, we even talk about our ancestors and, those that will come, after us, our descendants, it's really understanding that, time isn't really a straight line. And that's another thing that as humans, we don't understand. And, that's also why I think that there are things as human beings that we're not really meant to understand, that we can try to understand, but we're not really supposed to until we reach that threshold, until we reach that cloud, and time is really happening all at once. Right now, while we're here speaking, our great-grandparents, are doing whatever they were doing at the time that they were alive, at this specific time. Time is interweaved. And so also in that way, do we ever really die? No. We're always alive. We're always alive. We're made up of atoms and dust from millions of years ago, because we're all intertwined with all those atoms and all those particles that make us who we are. We're literally breathing it every day, and we were made into that. We came from our mother's womb. A male and a female created us. Our mom and dad created us, which is such a beautiful thing. Life is such a beautiful thing in that way, and so when you think about it in that way, it's really such a beautiful way to think about life. And that's the way I've always kind of thought about life. And
Beautiful.
I think that's come from, again, when we were talking at the beginning of like, I was always such a like intuitive kid, and like just, my height of empathy and kind of understanding, the world was, always heightened, as a kid. And that's how I've always felt. And it's so funny because I've also been singing. I'm a singer. I've been singing since I was 6, and music is such a big part of my life, and that intertwines with the theater and the acting and all of those things. And that's why I always say, make sure that you're honoring your gifts, whatever those may be. And when I was in high school, I was 16, and like I would used to sing in church, in high school in front of my whole school. And I was taking a religion class with my religion teacher that I was very close with. And I had a mass that I was performing at on Thursday. And the following Monday, when I had our class, afterwards, she pulled me aside after class and she told me, Kody, I had one of my close friends come in during church, and she told me that when you started singing, and mind you, she's a healer, and she kind of heals people through touch, and she sees like auras and all of these things. And she told me that, Kody, when you started singing, she felt your voice healing her through her bones. She felt your voice was like a cloud washing over her. And, she told me that you have like a power within yourself, a healing power through your voice, whether that be through singing or speaking with someone or speaking with people, that when you speak, you have a healing effect on people. And like all my life, I've been told that Kody, like, people have even said, Kody, and people that I've just met, your voice is so beautiful. And when you say that to somebody, you're thinking in your head, my voice is beautiful, but you're talking about my talking voice. It sounds weird, but people have told me that throughout my life, people I've just met. And it's like all these things that, I've always known that there was something inside of me, and I'm still exploring that power, because even a shaman in Mexico, when I went for my best friend's bachelor weekend, I was one of his groomsmen for his wedding. A shaman pretty much said the same thing. And so kind of to hear that's such a powerful thing in and of itself. And it really comes for us to realize that whatever gifts that we have in this world, what are you doing with it to affect the people around you? And I've highlighted that so much in this interview, because I really want your incredible listeners to really apply that, within their lives. We can all do that every single day in our lives. And when we do that, we fulfill what the universe has asked of us, I
love that.
Yeah. And I don't know about you or even, the listeners and viewers, but do you guys see like numbers every day, like 111 or 333 or 444? All of these like angelic numbers, they are kind of clues and kind of gateways into the angels and our loved ones that are watching over us, because that dimension, they can't communicate in the way that we're, communicating, it's almost like being in a house, like you're in one room and like your angels and loved ones are kind of in another room, but we're in the same universe. We're just in a different
You'll
Please.
love this.
Ooh.
I've lost a couple of people pretty close to me, and my aunt had passed away a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And on this one day last year, the weirdest thing happened between me, my mom, and my dad. I was living in Hoboken. My parents are out in Princeton, and my mom was watching TV, and there was a candle on a battery-operated candle on the kind of ledge above the fireplace. And it hadn't been on in years, and it was flickering. It was like going on and off. And it was this weird feeling. She was like, why do I feel like that's my sister? And she didn't say anything to anyone. And then my dad, classic dad, falls asleep on the couch till 2 a.m., then has to go upstairs. And when he got up from falling asleep on the couch, the kitchen, the fan above the stove was on full blast. And they did not use the fan that day. And he even was like, that is so strange. I feel this weird energy. And then in that same exact day, there was a bird on my balcony that would not leave. It was this red cardinal. It would not leave. And I just kept looking at it being like, and we see birds all the time. I don't think twice.
Yeah.
But I had this weird energy that day, and I was like, why do I feel like that's my aunt? Like, I have this weird feeling in the back of my soul that like it feels like her. And when I talked to my mom, she was telling me about this that day, and I was like, no way. I had something like strange happen too when I felt this energy, and my dad did. And it was just really interesting. I think when we also do pay attention to those signs, we can get good and bad signs from tons of different people. And I think it's how we listen to it as well.
100%.
Listen to our gut, listen to ourselves. How many times do we ask people for their opinion of something or validation for something? When we know the answer within us, like, we can seek it from the outside world if we need a sign, but at the same time, it's like we also have a world inside of us that totally knows what we're supposed to do next.
That, I'm so glad that you shared that story, because it really shows that we have all had these kind of experiences, and they're all part of the human experience when a loved one of ours has passed into their next life, and we're more in tune with how they're trying to speak with us, you know, because they can't speak with us like this. They can speak to us in our dreams. They can speak to us through, you know, animals, through nature.
And it's such a healing
It's
feeling.
just a healing thing.
Like, it feels so great
feels
when
so
you
good.
get a sign like that. And you know, you and your heart know where it's coming from. It gives some sort of, you know, calmness.
100%. Yeah. It's the most powerful thing in the world. It really is. I'm so glad you shared that story, and your viewers and listeners, like, I know that they've had those experiences, because again, it's such a human experience. It's such a human experience. I've had those experiences.
I really appreciate hearing your perspective on the soul and the universe and our flesh, because it's also really grounding to think about life that way, instead of taking things for granted, and, you know, really trying to live in the moment is one of the hardest things to do for our psyche. Either you're worried about the future or you're anxious about the past. Like, really, I feel like when we're finally at peace is when we really are trying to live for today and the now, and whatever that looks like.
100%.
Transitioning there, would love to talk about that idea that you brought up in the beginning, that we are more than just one thing. I think it's really easy to be put into, to try to fit yourself into a box, whether it's with a resume, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's what someone's asking you for your bio, like trying to map out what you are. But we're so many things all in one. I'm a rollerblader. I'm a podcaster. I do gymnastics. I'm a friend, a daughter, a coworker, whatever it might be. I think when we limit ourselves is when we're missing out on creativity and on all these things that could really add so much value to our life.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I feel like it's so difficult to hear what the world has to say in terms of the society that we live in, because, we live in a society that, kind of tells us the ways that we need to think, the way that we need to act, all of these things, what our journeys should be in our careers. And that's really tough to listen to and to kind of be around. Sometimes it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. And so it's very significant and important to make sure that you're not just one thing, because we are not just one thing, that you are delving into so many things of who you are. If you work in the finance world, but you love orchestra, music, athletics, fitness, yoga, painting, artwork, architecture, all of these things that are like not correlated in a specific way to the career that you're doing like now to make, an income or whatnot, pursue that. You have a right to pursue that, because that's going to first and foremost re-heal your soul, because again, we're given gifts when we're born in this world. So many gifts of ours, we are so afraid to light up. We're so afraid to light them up because we feel like we're not going to have enough time to, or that, wait, why should I go and pursue this?
And what if someone doesn't like it?
What if somebody doesn't like it?
Who cares?
Who cares? You dive in and you fulfill your heart's desire. You fulfill your soul's desire. There is a way to figure out any and everything within the schedules that we have within our lives. If you have, a 9-to-5, but you're a singer or you write music, you will find a way to do that. And when we're, dealing with our dreams and focusing on our dreams, yes, you need work or an income, in terms of money to help you fulfill that. That's really important to understand, because we all have to do that. But once you reach that specific threshold that you need to, you will know and you will feel ready. If you're able to do 2-3 careers at the same time until you're ready to focus on the one that you want at that specific time, go for it. There are so many ways. There's not one way. There's not one path. And there's a quote that, I heard someone say, that you can have it all, but not necessarily at the same time, all at the same time. You can fulfill what you want in your life, but maybe you have to focus on this one avenue for a little bit and then switch up to the second, and then come back to the first and then switch to the third. You can have all those things. It's just maneuvering through those, that yes, they can live in your life at all those moments, at those same moments, but you kind of have to pivot at one for a little bit, swerve in through. That's really so important to understand.
You don't know what you like until you actually do it.
Yeah.
And you dive in. You might go on one path that you really thought that, I want to do painting, and then realize, I don't like this. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to start a hobby, start a passion, and then stop and think, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
I failed. This is what I really thought I wanted to do, but I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not a failure. It's actually a win. The fact that you can get closer to what makes you happy, what you want to do, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, trying something, and then saying, you know what, maybe I'm going to do pottery, or maybe I'm going to do this sport or that sport, or hit the gym. I think it's so important for people to explore their creativity And creativity doesn't just mean painting or arts. Creativity is truly like the decisions that you are making in your life about what you want to do and how you want to live it.
Right.
I loved what you said, that there's no timeline for any of us. There's no right or wrong about where we're supposed to be in our life today versus tomorrow versus the age that we're supposed to accomplish something. You know, when I worked at NASDAQ, I was running the stock exchange for all these different companies. Every day we had 2 companies come in. I met with a 26-year-old CEO who was brilliant.
Wow.
And then I met with a 70-year-old CEO who it was their dream from a child to ring that bell. Wow. And that was just so inspiring to me to see that, you know, both CEOs, both ringing the bell, both took their companies public at different phases of life. Wow. It still is amazing, no matter where you're at.
It still is. Yeah, it still is, and that's such you know, an incredible thought, because you know, we compare ourselves to so many people around us. We compare ourselves to our peers, to where our parents were when we were our age, to where our grandparents were at our age. All these things, but your biggest competition should be the person that you were yesterday. That should be your competition. You should be your own competition, because you should want to always get better each and every day. Even the smallest step, even if it's 5 minutes of what can make you better in your career or in life or in your relationships, even as small as 5 minutes, you're growing each and every day. And there'll be days where that'll dip down, you know, you don't feel like doing work, you get discouraged, and then the next day you feel like you're like on top of the freaking world. It's ebbs and flows. It's ebbs and flows.
It's a beautiful and heart-wrenching process, but it's life.
It really is. It really is life. And even when I think about, you know, the fact that, you know, we live in a world that, you know, is so engrossed in like rules and, you know, all of these things, you know, be a rule breaker, you know, be a rule breaker in your life. Think outside of the box. Whatever situation that you're in that may cause you stress, what ways can I maneuver through this? What ways can I think outside of the box to get through this? Whether it be, you know, within your job or within, you know, a life situation, you're always going to get through it, and always imagine the light at the end of the tunnel. I know when I was doing my master's degree, there were times where I was, I can just remember it. Just times when I would be writing papers till 5 a.m. and then I had my internship starting at 9 with like no sleep and all of these things and just running on fumes, but remembering there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Things don't last forever. The rain doesn't last forever. And sometimes you have to think that when it rains, we need rain, because that's when the flowers start to sprout up after. We need the rainstorm to see the sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
You need the rainstorm to see the sunshine. You really, really do. And stress is a part of life, but it's how you navigate through it, and it's how you grow from it. Because you're going to think back from that week, from that month, from that year, and you're going to think to yourself, wow, I got through that, and I can't believe that I did, but I did, because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I thought outside of the box, and I knew that I'd get through it.
You're absolutely right, Kody. And I really think that mindset, which for me didn't truly get into effect until I ran the New York City Marathon, where that was real, you know, struggle days. But now today, it's like having that mentality. I really just try to feel my feels.
Yeah.
And the days, you know, I'll tell my friend about, you know, a crappy day that I had. And they'll always say like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. And I try to, you know, reply back and say, there's no reason to be sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go through that. Like,
Yeah.
I had to experience that. And today's a new day. And now I learned something from that lesson yesterday.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
Chris, how are we doing on time? Are we over?
Yeah, we're a little bit over. But
All right, Kody, thanks for keeping us honest here. Wrapping up the show, if you could give young Kody, one piece of advice, if there's one thing that you could tell him, what would you say?
One thing that I would tell a young Kody is to never let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish or be something, and to never let naysayers or the voices that are around you steer you in a direction that you don't want to be, and to always be confident. I didn't even mention this, but I stammered as a kid growing up, and when I tell people that, they can't believe it because I'm in the entertainment industry, and it was one of the biggest struggles of my life where I couldn't even be myself, and the height of that struggle was mainly in high school. I'm a really outgoing person, but stuttering and stammering made me retreat into a shell, and I hated that, and I got out of it, and millions of people go through stuttering and stammering, and it's something that as a TV reporter, as an actor, as a fashion model, that we want to keep advocating for people, that you're not alone, and sometimes when you look at somebody, you think that they have it all figured out, but there are layers of, I almost want to say, just glass that has been broken in our lives, but we can put it back together in so many ways, and that's, one of the most beautiful things that you can ever do. But for your viewers and your listeners, be fit, stay active, go outside, feel the sun. There are studies that human beings, the most happy that we feel is when we're outside in nature, because that's how mankind was created. And so be fit, be outside, get sun, spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, because your job, if you died tomorrow, they would find somebody for you, a replacement in a week, and they wouldn't care. And they wouldn't care.
Yeah.
So what is more important? And that is what I want to leave you with.
Kody, yeah, I know that young Kody would be so, so proud to see where you're at today. I can't thank you enough for coming on I'm Well Aware, sharing your heart and your wisdom with us today. Hey, listen, maybe one day I'll need a co-host and we can make a full show out of this.
I am one call and one text away.
Thank you so much.
I love you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to I'm Well Aware. Know someone who might benefit from this listen? Send the link their way. See you back here next week on the path to becoming more aware.